Hi class, I'm Professor Steele. Today we are going to look at our inverse trigonometric functions. Recall that we have cosine of theta telling us our horizontal position of the endpoint of an arc. Theta is the angle that corresponds with an arc whose endpoint has this x. So if I wanted to calculate theta, what we are going to do is take the inverse cosine or the arc cosine of x. Similarly, with our sine functions, sine of theta tells us our vertical coordinate of the endpoint of the arc. So therefore, to find theta, we find our arc sine or our inverse sine of the vertical distance. And now with our tangent function, tangent theta was our slope, if you recall. So if we inverse tangent the left side, we get arctan of our m value. And m, recall, is our slope of the terminal side created by the angle theta. Let's look at what kind of restrictions we need to place upon this on Desmos in order to have an inverse function. So if we look at our sine function, we notice that if I were to find an inverse, recall that what that does is makes our inputs our outputs and our outputs our inputs. We cannot find an inverse currently with this sine function. What we need to do is restrict our domain so that this becomes a one-to-one function. Once we restrict the domain to go from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, then our inverse sine function looks like so. And if you can turn your head to the right, you will see that this looks almost like the original function tipped and reflected. Similarly, with our cosine function, again, we have to restrict the domain so that our original function is one-to-one. This time, we're going to take it from 0 to pi in order for it to pass the vertical and the horizontal line test. Therefore, our inverse, again, recall, inverse means our inputs become our outputs, outputs become our inputs. So the input of 0 will now become our output, input of pi will now become our output, and we get the following inverse cosine function. Similarly, with our tangent, you'll notice our tangent is one-to-one if we restrict the domain from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, and then we get our inverse tangent function. You'll notice that our inverse functions no longer have periods. We can still measure amplitudes, but because it's not periodic, we don't talk about those features. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we'll apply the information that we just learned about in a real-life problem. So please like and subscribe to EdVantage.